Please listen to the following teaching with the motivation of bodhicitta. So the motivation and the conduct that we need to embrace now as we listen to this teaching is just as I explained at the beginning of the last session. That's it. We've already covered the first of the 4 mind changings, the precious human body endowed with freedoms and advantages. Now we'll move on to the second, which is the reflection on impermanence and death. Buddha taught that from among all footprints, the footprint, just as from among all footprints, the footprint of the elephant is supreme. Likewise, from among all reflections, the reflection on impermanence is supreme.
가시스나 랑칭기 제스 랑칭기 드로샤만 싱나 통제 파라시 트로제 카투르 랑부치기 제라 따당 공구다 때 드로제 배 데오고 랑게 양부수샤로 랑부치기 디디 랑치기 제디 만다버서 셰당니라 딱 강제랑 강대어 디치시데 너는 랑부치데 제디야 배 닝저요레 메토페만 제다 비로저레 양 랑칭 드로사기 슈르디야 배 미게 코치 드로샤도 강라 셴다 탐제디 지깔림도 바지마 안드로토기요 디디 강 디고냐 랑부치기 제디네 마다브레스테레 페시당니요레스 다 두시 탐제 나는 미타브 두시시 게치쇼레 미타브 두시시게네 메판체 이 체와야 용타고 요 말에 드니 문이게 최를 준주 야부지 용타고 요 말에 드바타시기 누르겨 요 말. 띵도 강하게 밀어 미타브 두시디 요 판체 이 체와 나브라타 이 강하게 알아서나 드니 알아서 최다 저 탐지대 양답을 주는데 스피드가나 두시 탐지는 저도 기와도 미답이 두시 오세 좀 된게 됐으면 빼미게 계시는 줄에서.
So when Buddha said from among all footprints, the elephant's footprint is supreme. Why? What is it? Yeah, for what reason is the elephant's footprint supreme? Well, there are 2 different reasons given, and you can kind of accept whichever of these you like. Some people say that the elephant's footprint is supreme because it makes the shape of the beautiful pattern like an 8-petaled lotus in the ground. Others say that elephant's footprint is supreme because elephants are very large and strong, so when they move through an area, they knock down branches and trees and bushes and so on, and they kind of clear a path that is then very easy for other animals like horses and donkeys to traverse. So that's the reason why their footprint is supreme. Anyway, that's except whichever of those reasons you like, but that's why there's a saying that the elephant's footprint is supreme. Likewise, Buddha said, for among all reflections, the reflection on impermanence is supreme. Without taking to heart the fact of impermanence, without reflecting on impermanence, there's no way to become a good practitioner. Without reflection on impermanence, there's no way to foster diligence, no way to perfect practice and reach accomplishment. It's just not possible, and there are no accounts of someone becoming an accomplished practitioner without taking impermanence to heart. So if we want to practice genuinely and become genuine practitioners, we need to reflect on impermanence, and that's why Buddha said, from among all reflections, that of impermanence is supreme.
통말 갈치와 바르도 갈치와 타말 갈치와 스킨티 미타비 두시트레스 티니 파타바 상기 강송도스나 미타체와 고비 두시티 통말 갈치와 티니 출런 주비 고체와스 미타체와 당고 출런 주비 고체 바르도 출런 준비 짜세 타마 축구트베 조체스 미타체와 로런 두시티 라는 길을 여드웨이나 최 두께디 가람이 최 지금 말 시규 되냐지 나 이마 시도가 나 가게요 말 유캔교 말 게메티교 말 교가치교 말 부구대교 말 이마 지가 시도가 똥바똥냐 전에 아마 거반 간디키와 나신지네 아마 거반 온비강다 양식 시작하고 류지다 키워라다 샴디 류디에 좀 유금으로 샤워래 딘디 딘드게 삼로지 게 나도 쳐주고 딘디 가나 딜에 가서 통마를 되네 나랑 저기 되네 미다치와게 두시디야나 쳐르지 고치에서 인터치사 나랑서는 고나지 저래 바로 쳐르 좀 비자치스 내 최제다 나도 지금 나도 딜라 experience 쇼요 나도 염용 쇼 쳐르기 제다 딜디페 나도 염니 다 단다 지금 저 제투사 말 지금 너무 있는 된교 깔리카도 또 튼지교 깔리카도 삼제 시절로 된다고 맨날 로슨도 되기 전에 다 다룬 사람만 상불 로슨 되고 삼기도 지금 로슨 많이 지금 다성도 다 지고 참이나 다단 다 지금 제일 대신 진짜 삼교 시절 불러지가서 최와 솔라이나 된다요. 된 지금 봐서에는 나 다로 치셔서 상부적인 센터 삼교 불러지요. 디디트는 메타보 마틴 비교네. 메타바트 템바이나 오야 대처럼 좀 짝짝해서 그나도 대응 뭐 따먹어도 다시도 강 다시도 따리 되는 배 타는 것도 돼 바깥에 따리 걸리길는데 지금 짝대니면 따리 저거 주고 왜 되는 신적이 최와야 보지가 미다가 최와의 대응선은 최를 전부 뺨미게 되는 최를 지고들 시작을 근데 바로 최를 좀 비자세서 그냥 따라 자수게 나신 지금 저거 따라 자수 딱 저거 주고 나신 지금 최를 준비시면 그래서 참으로 죽을 준비 조지스 다디데 미다치와 곰곰곰곰곰 저 때니 람냠린 람디 냠린 귤을 약게 때니 델라테비 때니 람 때니 간세스나 나랑 저기 때니 미다치와 템비고 왕기 일 나랑 저다 게림 공교네 조심 공교네 장조심 공교네 동니 공교네 민제 공교네 저거친 공교네 딜라 drogi 미다바디 메마죠 최대 dro고 말에 최대 dro마도 산지 고봉도 말에 산지 고봉 보지 마토게 버도 마토게 버도 미다바디 dro고 거래 타마 추구르게 dro세스 dro스는 dro고스 프레임 어때 데티니 간통다 퍼센트 갈샤마데스.
It's also said that impermanent, that which is important at the beginning, middle and end of practice, of Dharma practice, is impermanence. So Padampa, in this vein, the master Padampa Sangye said that at first reflecting on impermanence and death inspires you to enter into the Dharma. Secondly, it spurs you on in your practice. Thirdly, it's the friend that leads you to Dharmakaya. So this means, first of all, when we begin to reflect on impermanence and death, we acknowledge the fact that sooner or later we're going to die, and when we do die, we're going to leave this world empty-handed. Nothing that we've accumulated, that we've attained in this life, nothing physical or material, none of our circle of friends and so on, are going to accompany us. We're going to leave just as we entered this world. Actually, in a sense, we're going to leave even more empty-handed because we won't even be taking our body with us. So when we really contemplate impermanence and death in this way, and think about the transience of life, that inspires us to turn to the Dharma and take that first step of entering the Dharma. So that's the first point. Impermanence inspires us to enter the Dharma. Secondly, it spurs us on in our practice. So I have personal experience with this. Sometimes I find myself, in the past I found myself feeling kind of lazy or despondent about practice, just putting things off, and not feeling very enthusiastic about doing my recitation or what have you. As for instance, you might find yourself one day feeling very inspired and kind of, very inspired determined to stay on retreat. Oh, I'm going to go and stay on 3-year retreat. But then something comes up and you kind of put it off, and slowly that thought just exits your mind. If we, as practitioners, once we've begun our practice, if we don't continue reflecting on impermanence and death, we can fall sway to laziness and procrastination in this way. All of that is the fault of not continually reflecting on impermanence and taking that to heart. So that's why impermanence is said to be like a whip that spurs you on in your practice. Like you have racehorses here, right? Horse racing is popular. Towards the end of the race, often the jockeys start to whip their horses, and that kind of makes them speed up on that last stretch. So impermanence is very important to help us muster the diligence necessary for practice. Thirdly, it's the friend that helps lead us to the Dharmakaya. This means that if we continue to practice diligently, we practice and practice, train and train, through this, whatever our practice be, whether it be the generation stage, completion stage, meditation on emptiness, compassion, what have you, without reflecting on impermanence and death, there's no way we'll ever accomplish it. So through diligent practice, when we finally reach the fruition of our practice, that reaching fruition is due to reflection on impermanence and death.
미다 채워 쓰긴 데다 지 예와치는 배차다 경찰 쉬우라고 말 경찰 연된 전부를 감정하고 그래 근데 쉬우라고 말든 알아도 미트에 신력이 지되는 데는 미다 말해 리라와 강김라서와 가져야네 이마지 때 리라와 강김 탐지에 시도를 토도를 마세워진 알아도 전부린 탐지에 로밀린니마도 되어요 말해서 밀린 수민이 지금 찍도 차가는 조가 찍도 차가는데 로밀린 찍도 차가는 찍이 제라디 전부린 탐지에 남가르더니 나랑 저희는 야르는 거 같은데 지그랬어요. 대한 라이브 때다 밀린 수미나 같이 다 경험단 하고 그렇게 지금 나랑 저희는 뒤수지도 하여튼 신력이 직대에는 몇 가지 그냥 아스텔레스 제오이 약부인 약으로 쉬우지요. 대한 유리에 딱 때문에 가게요. 대인도 가나 신력일 때는 밑에 봐서 나올 때 신력이 직대는 때 근데 나중에 샘진을 때는 압니다. 나중에 샘진을 삼을다가 있나요? 딱 알아서 드링디 미디가서 되줄 때 니네 판결라 패제 따로 족주는 가서 하는 게 미치가 패제 여기 말해. 딱 많아야 야 타바는 남기 미치가요. 담지 시사. 지금 뭐 시도를. 뒤인도가 디링니 여대긴 게 미치잖아. 로야다 겁주 타바시 가지고 딱 현재 빼 미면도 최대 야고 쇼다. 디링 판제 로야다 겁주 타발 아스트레일리아 미치가요. 담지 시사. 이 시사로 로야다 겁주 락 되겠네. 왜 말. 어빼띠인도 나중에 생겨를 따나야. 담지 이마지 신 로마도 수지게 되죠. 뒤인도가 나중에 딱 되더라도 마신시는 권상람이 셔롱도 뭐 받죠. 오시는 빼면 뭐 셔죠. 로르규 동님부터 내셔죠. 딱 되는 가서 되세요. 뒤인도 나중에 생길 때는 메타바. 뒤인도 강라다 된줄 삼다 아시 메타바리야. 당하고 니에다 강바 일라 삼도 따나야 쉬우쉬우자 님부민도 삼다. 이 마치 위치기 담비 끼울 때는 미사와. 담비 끼울 때 상기 좀 된다. 구르는 무신다고. 그러봐. 티나 신기 되는 남아 계신 담바 망부진 잠불이 줘야 돼. 그래서 담좀 민길 한마 담을 구름 부지 별별에서 다다 통교 상기 좀 된데 림빈들 구청와를 가서 네발 걸 구청와를 노르시되는 거버 저거 상기 잡아치니 캬와 단다 상기게 내려서 다뤄지 뭐지 나랑서 터버뚝서지 투 라도 마도 티티야 하고 가서 좀 시선을 갑도록인데 우리 지지가 가와끼 가와 하고 막 상기 좀 된데 그 있으실 때는 또 그런 이동 앞자서나 단다 상기 좀 된데 지금 신경사다 충사를 생각도 라피디 콩기 진압당 시지게레마도 나랑 것이는 로똥이 나줄때 간속에 dimajia 돌만 zamulin 게 의미 하고 왜 맞아 돼 아다 때니까 대대되게 되는 나중에 생리를 담아야 메다 따들라에 방우실래 되는데 깨우 담발 때입니다 깨우 담 상기 좀 된대죠 빼나드네 야 계란서 크리스천께서나 예수 그리스도 zamulin 태어났다 요 공아요 된 네팔에 있는 저 힌두 사람들은 람스기도 백개라지고 되죠. 다다 통교. 기우 친구 인식에서 진짜게 되네다. 무슬림들은 알라에 책세기도. 다 된적이 알라데 있는 거 무함마드는 된세기도 저 탐지에 깨다 빼면 zambu는 깨다 친구 쉬우지 않아서 밑함을 많이 뺏게다 쉬우지 않다. 그래서 남자 민점 말이요. 야가 그쪽 진짜죠. 벽에서는 제만 유세라. 저 탐지게 기우 따가 썸기 미쳐봐. 하버도야 디 두친 자줄라서 남깔아 잡고 사시는 못다도 줄투게 진짜 무시도 줄 여긴 탐지야 오늘 지가 정말 표사 이때 나랑서 디스부들 강해야 까게 부르지 당아서 이 디줄 땅 나서 그 수고를 답한테 맞지 가요 산네 근데 미다 같은 거래 이니 깨고 답을 때는 미다 같아 깨고 답을서는 잘못을 배낭에마게는 추적 양념에 아쇼카, 야로 아쇼카는 전불링이 깔았습니다. 이거였어. 이 벽이 자고 송전가고 치송되는 게 내가서 오늘 야이 초등가로 이제 야가게 충분한 것만 벽이 나오고 되게 야로 나타난 친구 오늘이 야로 아쇼카 자호저로 차 근데 차요. 그래서 통제 당사 민길 항마서 마도 지지가 통계 볼게 요마. 내가 사무당다에 엄마 사무당다에 뺨이다 kinso길로 이 스트리트 휴하고 뭐다 아스트레일리아에서 갑자기 미친 거 유튜브 그때 중요해. 아메리카에 있는 티나신 차이게 잉글랜드에 있는 야로 뭐 길기 뭐 차이게 밑뱀이 깨라서 그래서 지가 통교 어야 Dinita tinta pasha de Naranzo did something in ya. That in the Dominic Molamata to go to Aisha. All that tinta something Dinita, Mitachi is. Yeah, that did not say Michigi. Yeah, that in the Gala. Yeah. That the sound of the young and got out of Kanyos, but the king can be good chicken payment. Chitan around there many Yakuya, Kiranzo, Trading Yakuya, Aranzo Tada, the Australian attack of the Yarki, Baby, change your gig Yakape, the man down, Daka Trading down, there sat down, comes the Yaku Kiranzo to the Lord Yakim, who you said it. Another never would have a lot to get down to say Jayoma. That the Papa so in a day living to one setting of the Jagara 12 living ticket setting with you the Consummate. In a kiran second Zinaya, the Unilo Jalana Degma. Harbour dance and setting way and again not so good Chilmoya. Number 9 accident in Shito, Basna Dam Shito, Garina Dam Shito, Barbana Dam Shito, around the Yakuja don't work young parts of how dance and terrorism. Why are they terroristic in Dujat and bomb job American Zampulling on outful Cheshire in huge category, 1,000 the Gola Concerts and all center gold Japanese Miton Moses. What is that dance on that Israel, the Lebanon, Marjan, Mikazu City to Russia, the concert, the Ukraine Marjan Miton Kazu City to Taron, America, Jakarta, America, the concert, America, Jana Maxur Gendo, Jakarta, Jana Maxur Gendo with Chigi. Then Nicol Bombo, UK, and the Mim Boom Chap, Pumeta, Tangata, you have one, the goods within a tragedy. Don't try to use me yourself. Dinama Jat de Kanza, Russia, the Krashima, the Tokyo, the Japan, the America Jadukana, Sajatonda Chik, the Kaza, Chik, Chatham shoot on the car. That dance on the Nicol Power, delay and Dupsum, the Jizap, the shoot share, the President Sajatonda Shinga, that and the scientists say, I'm not Gamusher, that Gamusher Market on that day. Teen can't teach such a duggy and the comfort to come to put it in a incident. Teen can't tap at them as a middle, around the millet king about the window. Tindle some Nati, Church and a Gagra Rangi Lutia, tap at them at the window was an. Tap at them at the middle laboratory. Did she Kansas in Aranzo visit the tap at them with the Rio Marite? The tap at them are mena, the she's on Kakemeta, Namkatomana is yelling. She is the mere Kakame. In the money. Kewa in the language. Around the sheets have just Kewa country, Kewa and Kewa language. Sanji Koban talk to me. It's a Tanguivalas with Tindani Chame, comes from Korval Kigri, think around the Tafa Mirror, Sangi Pungu Kewa, Ki Kewa on the country to water, Yawa on the country to water, Idalana country to wear. Yawa is a pet to sure. The me Kewa de Lama Ina, the me Nepai taking, Jorwa bed taking, Ombu Masan taking, Kewa, Kangal Kazin, Samustan. The Tanda music, the Tundu Tongo, the Tundu Casset, the country to Budo, I mean, Paramaranzo, the me said to Tundu Chick Latine, Sadu, or Tindu Kangal Kamas a year. The day to come some of that, Tandanga Milu of the Capsule, Namshi do and Hapazama, she and Nichi Chima of the Pendant Mindu, Kewajin, Pendin Langore, Kewa Malev, scientist Mangu Yorete, Kewa Mindus, Kewa Dux and Kosu the Chigo Marate, Kewa Mindus Lago Marta. I gave Hapu Mare, Kashi, scientists, Kewa Yomashi Sapaka, Merebe, Namkatomana, he raised Kashi Hamaji, Manchi, a scientist in Tangu. She's on a Kewashina, give me Haku, Tungu, Semadogi, Mary Lago. Sangi jumped in the Uri, Kewachiman regular. Oh, yeah, Dini, Legista and Dini Paro, Jews, teacher Ramon, you give us a Deverchas. Kewachima Legi, Kewachima Drover. Around the beauty you shall matos, some number she was Kewashima language. Did you know that Tandang around me, Chani, Kewachima's language, Kewa the Yakuchi Linguista, Yakuji was some number. Did the Marshal Chuman, teaching that Kewachim Chameva? Yeah, you got a cupcakes and other country, Nivata, Rawan Yomar. The day you come, Mitachi the young, the temple. Mitachi was tenue the Dumalzuki catch a mare. Paying on success you do that. Yakaja. Naba is without Ran tension takers, Tintan Hare. Mitaya Buji Losama, Ran Chechimala, Matu condition Kevalan was a ticket in Rana Yabachita. Rana Nimachi Shikres, the computer in Semla, she did not Dungal Viginja. 시주도 짠 하마고 나기도 미타고 짠 하마고서 대 누구처럼 요로 하 나빼 미래서 때는 요 락스통 알아 통 남들지고 미타고 임바다 하고서 가지고 체 딜레이나 상로탄다 야고자 개와 치말이나 취지 드네 로사가 람가지도 디티는 캐주리 미타고서 템플 비즈니스
When talking about impermanence, we can do so with by means of lots of different divisions, the impermanence of the external environment, the inner world, and so on and so forth. We find these details in the scriptures. We are tight on time here, and I also know most of you are very familiar with these teachings, so perhaps no need to go into all these details again. Nevertheless, just to refresh and just to mention some of these divisions briefly, we can, when contemplating impermanence and death, we can think about the impermanence of the outer world, meaning the external environment. Our earth, this world, the environment, the soil, the rivers, the mountains, the houses, buildings, towns that make up our environment, all of this sooner or later will disintegrate. Houses will fall down, mountains will collapse, this world will come to cease. Scientists say that in something like 1 or 2 million years, maybe 3 million years, but anyway, I understand they sort of have calculated a duration of time. Basically, after some amount of years, this world will cease to exist. It will be destroyed. Your country, Australia, is extremely beautiful. It's a lovely place, but it's not going to last. Sooner or later, it will disintegrate. It will change, and it will cease to be. Likewise, with all of the contents of the world, meaning sentient beings living in the world, we can look at all of us here in the assembly hall. Probably within 60 years from now, not a single one of us will be alive. Maybe a few, just a handful. We can say 100 years. For sure, in 100 years, it's very likely that any of us will be alive. These days people talk about, extending human lifespan. Scientists or modern doctors are even saying that, soon humans will be able to live to 150 years. Okay, say people can end up living to 150 years. But still, that means, okay, in 150 years, no one in this room is going to be alive. Life is still short, it's still transient and impermanent. Our lifespan is not lasting, it's fleeting, and sooner or later we're going to die. There are wonderful stories, very moving stories, and a lot of pertinent details to be found in scriptures, like the words of my perfect teacher, but we won't go into those details, of course, not right here. The point is that, in short, we need to reflect on the truth of impermanence, the fact that everything is impermanent and changing, and that we are going to die sooner or later. We need to really take this to heart, so that we really acknowledge this fact. We really acknowledge this fact in our own lives. We can also think about the impermanence of sublime beings. Think, in the past, 2,500 years ago, Buddha Shakyamuni appeared in this world. After him came great masters like Guru Rinpoche and so on. Fully enlightened beings who had mastery over phenomena, who could fly through the sky, perform miracles and so on. We can look, for instance, at the 84 Hamasiddhas, the 25 heart disciples in Tibet. These great masters, in comparison to which we're just like bugs, But even them, they are no longer around. They too were subject to impermanence. Their lives, their bodies also were subject to change. They passed away and they're no longer here. If such great beings, if even enlightened beings, subject to impermanence and death, there's no need to speak of ourselves. Buddha Shakyamuni was born in Lumbini, enlightened in Bodh Gaya, taught in Varanasi and so on.
Lumbini.
Born in Lumbini.
Bodh Gaya.
Sorry. Born in Lumbini, enlightened in Bodh Gaya, and so on. And we can visit his, because of the strength of his blessings and his extraordinary legacy, we can still visit those places as pilgrimage places, touch our head to them, and make some prayers. But Buddha Shakyamuni is not here. In any case, the only reason that he's left a legacy is because of how, his great blessings and majesty. People like us after our death, just a few years after our death, or let's say like 40 years after our death, there won't even be the kind of smell or everyone will have forgotten us completely and utterly. Yeah. So the same goes for the sublime beings in other religious traditions like the different schools of Hinduism, Christianity, Islam and so on, Muhammad, Jesus Christ, the various realized Hindu masters. All of them were subject to impermanence and death. They've all disappeared, they're no longer present in this world. So we can reflect like that as well. Think also of the Dharma kings, the great Dharma king of Ashoka, Tibetan Dharma king Trisong Detsen. Both of these kings brought so very vast areas of land under their control and converted them to the Buddha Dharma. They're sort of unsurpassable Buddhist kings, but they too passed away. Their legacy also sort of came to an end. Now all of that's just history. Of course, every other country has its own history, its great monarchs and great people, and all of them are just that, history, because they were all subject to impermanence and death. Especially these days, on top of just the basic fact of impermanence and death, there are many new conditions that make our lives even more fragile, even more vulnerable. Here you have very good resources, so probably a lot of people will be able to live up to 100. But in Nepal and places like Nepal and India, maybe the average lifespan is more like 70. But whether you live to 100 or 70 or whatever, the point is that, you are going to die. Whether it's at 100 or 70, you are going to die. There's no way around that. And these days, there's more and more chance of dying unexpectedly, like through an accident on a bus or a car or a plane, being hit by a motorbike or something, or in a terrorist attack, or like some random act of violence. Like look at the USA, such a powerful, mighty country, and it was vulnerable to a sudden attack, like 9/11. How many thousands of people died there? Look at the situation with Israel and Gaza, Russia and Ukraine. Thousands of people being killed there on a daily or a frequent basis. If we think about a potential conflict between, say, the US and China, or China and India, that could lead to like a nuclear bomb being detonated. I've heard that the nuclear bombs that they have now, these countries have now, are 3 or 4 times more powerful than that detonated in Japan. So that many more people destroyed, that much more destruction. Maybe that's not exactly correct scientifically, and some of you who know might then laugh at me or something. But the point is that even if I haven't got my fact exactly right, the point is that everything is impermanent, and sooner or later we're going to die. And the real difficulty is that we don't know when and we don't know how. Some people might think, well, okay, I can't do anything about dying, but after I'm dead, well, that's it, story's over, so I don't have to worry. But that's not the case, right? Our mind doesn't just cease after death. Instead, awareness continues and takes rebirth. So our experience is going to continue. And it's possible that if we're not careful, we'll take rebirth in one of the lower realms as an animal, a preta, or a hell being. Or maybe we'll take rebirth as a human, but maybe someone with like a chronic illness or a very difficult disability, which will just mean constant suffering. Think of the suffering of animals. Animals like donkeys, or animals that are bred for slaughter. The suffering of pretas, hungry ghosts, hell beings. Incredible and intense suffering. What would think about actually the possibility of you yourself taking rebirth in one of those forms. What would happen? What would what would such a destiny be like? We really need to think about that, because we don't know when we're going to die, and we don't know when we're going to die. But whenever we do die, what will happen next is rebirth. It's true that most modern scientists don't accept rebirth, and a lot of them outwardly speak against the possibility of rebirth. But regardless of what they say, they actually have no proof either way. They haven't been able to prove rebirth, and they also haven't been able to disprove it. Buddha, however, our teacher Buddha Shakyamuni, said that rebirth does occur, that the continuity effect will continue, and there's 2 lines of teaching that loosely say the continuity of cause and effect will continue. So while you have the chance, while you have the chance, be sure to plant good seeds for the future, for your own future, because we need to all think of our future lives, right? Where we want to end up in the future after this life. For this reason, we need to take impermanence and death to heart. In order to ensure a positive destination for ourselves in future lives, there's no other means for that but to apply the Buddha Dharma if we want to ensure a positive destination for ourselves in future lives. Some people think that thinking about impermanence and death just makes more suffering for oneself, more tension, more anxiety. That is not the case, and that's certainly not the purpose of this reflection, this instruction to reflect on impermanence and death. We are actually instructed to reflect on this for our own benefit, so that we can help ourselves, benefit ourselves, so that we can live well and ensure a positive destination for our future. And so when death does come, we can die with confidence, without anxiety, and at peace, and with some assurance that our destination, our next rebirth, is going to be positive.
Oh yeah, that kind of sana. Mitachiwa di yakuji gomtumna munigi pechu number taba jungo. Ta kyo de tile sensi de shawa ina, pe de shawa ina. Di jizun milati pe migita. Munigi japyo tamchila kita munigi ketayo deva. Samji michawe gichi tire jire de di konge namdar da. Tin nala kansong da korang namdar nala kansong da. Ngachila jigne rila tu namchi chanya gom ne ta chiwin jikwa borne ta chimin yungma jinsa la. Concho de Kana Shigul Jigin Concho James. The Shigul Jigin Church and Concho Yapo Joins. Then in Namchik and Chival and Chiwan Begeta, two new Wiggins and Senso, started drop for your pebble or that division of the Onia, Saxon Nisum Show. Then the Indicala, Tindicinate in a Chival, the Congate in a Sangi Copon, which told you the Changa Chamber in the Mosecurity, using hard in the Tango Shigul and Jig, a relative, Gomjap, the Topani, the San Gesons. Tanga chiwi jikwa me sta chiwal tarta te mizin milar chiwal jikwa sane ma te ta milar wa ta chiwal jikwa kan yo te ngarang to ina ya chitang cheba ya ko de shikil jikma ati ya lurgi ni bu shegyo ta lurgi shin tuzu mindu mo ya chewa to shidu kan pe mi lo dewo chin shido re ta lurgi mangu shegyo doju ngarang so dunjum koma ge se durji dandil lurgi pe ni bu shegyo re Tatina Shinchiki, young Sangi Jundin, Zenam Ginala, young Lurgi Penyam Buchi, Naranzo Gabuki Sechi, Tene Kanse, Chiva Chuya, Chiva Music Lurgi, that Lurgi Chicken Mangushi, Naranzo Battle Church, and Lamas of John Ludican Pello, Dew, Singane Shuchi, Droju with Lurgito, then Pender and Buchi cook, Pender. Gatene Penderbuji, that deep in the Rugumar, that Penderbuji Coma Samota. Oh, yeah, Tiku Coma, the finishing channel, Lord use the lab, and one evening Chimashuron Kito. Around in the nature, Melbourne get out, let regular time yet, was paid in ticket and show you how to kill a Gramaso, confidence or what. Baby make it in a that in the two company Gunzen and Mitashiwala, Jig, show you how to group, show you services, and Shiwala Jikwem. That did pay actually. Nanzo Chiwala, Tindrik in a Chiwal Jikwem, maybe such a liberal, not should do Konoyamara. The Namshik Show Yapot, Chiwati, Tango Chiwala, Jig Church, Parkapin, Chiwala, Yalt. Chiwale Jaldo, Tindrichi gets to Jizun Milatoina, Peshasa to Jizun Milares. Another Tina Shinchi, Metacho Gomni, Chur Donate, Tartu, Milarana Shinchi, when you get in Chiwa, Jigwami was such a left to Gorbato, Jigwachi Buchin did we get some Ares.
So the point is that we all need to meditate on impermanence and death and really take this to heart. Take this to heart, and as a result, then engage diligently in our practice. The great yogi Milarepa just had inconceivable qualities, inconceivable realization. You can look at his liberating life story to learn more about him. But when you look at his life, you find that he says of himself, just to paraphrase, he says, scared of death, I fled to the mountains, and thinking again and again that it's unsure when I'll die, I applied myself to practice. And through practice, I gained fearlessness. I conquered my fear of death. Now I'm fearless in the face of death. So what he's saying is that there's a lot we could say about these beautiful and profound lines that Milarepa spoke, but in short, he's telling us that why did he go off to the mountains to practice? Well, it was because he was scared of death, scared of the truth of impermanence. He went to the mountains, he applied himself to practice because he was so scared. And through his practice, he realized, because of his realization, now he's freed from the fear of death, utterly fearless. So this is actually, what we also need to do. A good practitioner will not be scared of death, actually. That's one hallmark of a good practitioner. And there are so many stories and examples of this. A lot of stories that would be great to tell, actually, but we just don't have the time. Like this story of the late Dujun Rinpoche's son, Doji Jadol. Also stories from Buddha Shakyamuni's own life, like the story of a prince who practiced inspired by his fear of death. So many, even stories of practitioners from, in Humla, where I'm from. This is, also the way that the previous Penor Rinpoche, so the incarnation before the late Penor Rinpoche, the way he died, an amazing death. If you read an account of it, it will bring you to tears. This is the kind of staunch, steadfast confidence that we need to arrive at. So we start off, we first engage in practice because we're scared of death, scared of impermanence, and then we continue in our practice inspired by the reflection of impermanence and death. And through our practice we reach a point where we are absolutely fearless. In a sense, we've conquered death when we arrive at that point. So this is how we need to proceed. We need to reflect on impermanence and death and reach that level of fearlessness, just like the yogi Milarepa. The point is not to think about impermanence and death and remain in a state of fear. The point is to use that to, enter practice, engage in practice, and conquer that fear. That's very much.
Tene indigo ta mitaba gyule kiwi ge pesharena tene karapara givi singete kharab gumchun na shares kharab gumchun de pupajina samnu shu de sare de tene shon de kala mita chewa tene konge chlo pupadama chara gumchun buje sarma buje ta mara onde kala kola tamje tige par tene sha go re tene indigo kala ta ditu sha go do samde akha ma mal sunu ya judu kala 나한테 지구 에라 미라 치시 디 인도 강 나랑 최랑 전에 가기를 마도게 디지에 두주 초라다는 편도고 말해서 야 나는 양상이 말 치료 편도게 양상무다 다들이 야야 말도게 콜로데야 그게 샤도그레 처마되게 샤도그레 산다 뭐니 말 편도 kana 뚜샤고 아직 삼도 아직 나 말트네 야 주기라 그러면 간세 다 디가 도대 토마미다는 게 지나다 지 주도 자가 되는 좋아다는 나 주기를 나랑 좀 보조래서네 야 말샤 다 딘데지네 로 망고 도네 로 징아 투비 망고 도 마르송 야로 차로 콩게 도로 탐제 차르마가 망고 기트네 샤또 드레 총그레데 차르마 또 로 마죠 나마 투고토 디데 인디 콩테 문이게 기위싱인 데네 거라파라 아야 카라 곰충무스겐티 데네 나란조이나 쳇미다 그비게 쳇샤서도 쳇미다 데네 곰비기 데네 나란조이나 어야 데네 쳇샤서데 데 카라 곰죠 카자 곰죠 세겐데 진짜 다 차르마식도 비시오 추도 쳇가서 그렇게 뜻도 비시하게 리드어로 아직 리드 추도 쳇가서 카르마 쥐어가서 있나야 초라마다네 그래서 다른 로기담데 시 지메링비기 로기담데 시 따지나 먹을라나 두즈메 바토라테네 먹가로 그래 인디 강라다 딘데 인디 강라 나랑서 있나야 쳇미다고 곰기디 신앙랑기 돈다 말에 컴퓨터는 기돈다래 나랑서 약보지 나랑서 있는 치소버타 ngara dirwa ta ngaranzo pe kewa chimani na yabu yongju ta tindege tondal tenganzo mitachiwa de gomgo yore tindu kama mitachiwa de yabu gomzo kewa chima ke tonda yabu de kewa dilai na chutu kela tini ngaranzo chunju yongre ote tinde indu kama tamjike ngaranzo mitachiwa de yang yang to ten ya ten mitachiwa de ten chu dukula tine zani tushur ma shwa 야부 용기 때 미다치와래 때 미다치와 때 쟁고레스 네 드레스 송셔지야.
A really good example, like it could be like the classic reference or kind of measurement for taking impermanence and death to heart is the practitioner called Karak Gomshol. He was practicing in a cave, and outside the cave there was this like a thorny bush, and every time he exited the cave to go to the bathroom or what have you, it would catch on his clothes and scratch his skin. And the thought would occur to him, or maybe I should cut that bush back, you know. But then he would think, well, why? Why would I waste my time doing that? Who knows if I'll actually, once I've gone back into the cave, I'll actually be still alive to, and exit the cave again. Life is uncertain, life is fleeting. So he would cast aside that thought and just sit back down in his practice. Then he'd get up again and go out of the cave, and the same thing would happen. That thought would arise, and he'd think, no, that's a waste of time. Who knows if I'll even still be alive, to go back in the cave. So this is how he thought, because he'd taken impermanence and death to heart so deeply. He stayed in that cave practicing for many years. By the end of it, his clothes were torn to shreds. His skin was very scratched. The bush was flourishing. But he had attained realization because he'd applied himself so diligently to practice. So that's the benefit of and the outcome of reflecting on impermanence and death. There are so many other stories and masters who illustrate this reflection as well, like Rigpa Melbourne and so on, but yeah, we do not have the time. To sum up, the point of reflecting on impermanence and death is to reach a point where we overcome our fear of impermanence and death, to arrive at a point of real deep confidence. Also to ensure positive future rebirth, because in order to ensure positive future rebirth for ourselves, we need to practice the Dharma well, and to practice the Dharma well, we need to inspire ourselves with through the truth of impermanence and death. In short, we need to reflect on impermanence and death so that we engage in practice without procrastinating, without putting things off. It's for that reason, for that purpose, that we are taught to reflect in this way.
Yeah. That you can don't see you at the same without 다 코르빈 예믹스긴 클랩이래. 코르빈 예믹스 딱 아주 코르바디 교인 받잖아. 하모 코르바디 까먹지 상부지 약부지는 제우지 약이 삼네. 그 코르바들 짜는 전도 글로셔르게 매. 코르바 코른 게 니데 간데지 돼서 아주 가와를 때는 코르바를 대화점 요마. 상기 좀된데 강성 코르바 컵기 때점에 대화나면 요마 있어. 코르바스기데 컵기 때점에 대화 요마 했어. 이 인도가 티 코르빈 예믹스 됐어. 앞에나 나랑 저기 지단계 삼로 지 땅와이나 리투 강와이 되어 말에 얄와는 찾아게 말에 디 코르와레 제초 말에 이달라니 조금 그 동안에 디기부지가요 말에 둘라니 꼴주 그 동안다 지기지기 세게 동안에 밀라니 동안 메기부 강에서 깨가 나시기 동안에 끼위 동안 가위 동안 나위 동안 치위 동안에 요래 살라니 포동 그 동안에 요래 그 오늘 말 때문에 말 오늘 포위 동안에 하마이라 탑주 그 동안에 너는 저게 담지 동안 가냐마다 지가요 이도 나도 코르바라 찾고 찌기 윤생을 여 말때 이나야 생금이 바사되게 코르바스긴 가만자 이 삼네 가생아 지 통서 비디오 지나라 되네 디네 가서 가데 표제 안디인사래 나라서 잉글랜드에 포사지기 창사견이만 이수만 로고서인도 이 유크레인에도 코로나미고 유크레인에도 유기는 창사견이 무슨만 로고 때 유기는 막 거의 막 제가 돌렸어. 유기는 로드 그 BBC나 인사로 베제티 셰서디 당가 때는 되게 너는 유튜브 나게 통해서 되네도 되네 딱 창사견이 무슨만 로고 말에 밖에 유기는 막 제가 돌렸어. 되네 그 강지만 되네 창사견이 무슨지만 로고 말에 좀막 하와도 저 표사를 위해서 미직 되기도 걸어. 이 리포터 되기도 난 만들 수도 그랬어. 니 결과도 숨지 뭐 맞진 수치 거래. 난 로그레스 창사가 상담당 요 말했어. 내가 결과부터 나가 니 결과 숨기부터 니 맞진 수치 그랬어. 진짜라고도. 게임이 되게야 오늘 로그를 뢰인 콤마를 수도 버려서 들려고 나서 오늘 약합을 들으셔야 나도 미디에 감도 약을 때문에 약합을 샤신다 약부지서 돈들이 샤신데 니 약합 니배 사샤 시우찬데 이 돈들 출발해 이 누가를 맞도 이 약부지가 말해 마이나야 나도 이 약부지 나도 약합 착받아 대사디 잉글랜드 대대로 착받아 코로나 거 자고 착받이야 착받 충중 말해 그러면 동라지기 때문에 뭐랑 쪽을 당기 있어 되게 쓰기 때문에 딘나신기 가서 약간 가와가랑 이 약간 다시 어디 셴바이 제가 지워는데 딘도나 차신지 어디지 차신 되게 아주 감성 걸어와 경비요래 딘디 칼라 간데 삼었던 게 있는다 리투네 미게와 나온 삼었던 다야 딘저기 차신게 동아지 개고 찍지 니외대 삼나 가라도 미 가져야잖아 개교래 나교래 시교래 개교래 개가 나지 동아리에서 미키부지 가와요 미키부지가 요 미스긴데 커버가 나가 축구도 짱고 간디지는 이마지 마시고 줘서요 말에 만화와 줘서 만기고 줘서 말 미기 축구도 날래 맞지 안 눈께지는데 소사 말에 나 타윈네 싱가포르 버드나 용구요 디딩아 양아 나랑 저 진다지가 비즈니스 클래스나 땅 당가 비즈니스 클래스 되더니 8절도 미 개부지 왜 가요 아 와라 때문에 이 기술 디지도 간세스나 다지서 랩톱서 그래 이렇게 데르다기도 딜라 거 요거도 뭐고 해서래 다지 요거이나 에어로스도 있는 가마 땡땡까지 셔 행는 인도 되게 뱀미기 축구지 인사래 뱀미기 축구지 인사 진짜기 때문에 나는 깔로는데 그래도 아주 도르는데 양코로 되게 깔게 먹고 슛 근교한테 미치기도 슛도 돼 통도 아니 껴어서 계속 먼저 다시 가면 로치문이 dunjutana jadile teke mijire supuni chichige medu ene dongba kyo shagatere lakpat direjente ta kani gol korwai diboda duchku tigazo ni inguchiga medu ya ta kola take care chigenda magoda take care ganjo ko su bulto tuni pen tosa mar ko gejo dele ni pen tosa mar ko mishi wala ko pen to medu te direje dege tele ton karo akha chubula ya ingucha medu zeula ya ni 제우든지 제우메가 차서 이거 감순 걸어서 눈을 라신다 요 말에 감순 걸어와 눈을 라신다 자신 저와 띵이 쳐바지 소원도 살아마리 뭐지서 아주 서로 오늘 난 능을 뭐니 그래 이거 인고선 지가면 땡 빌라이나야 딱 제가 다시 그동안 딱 하고 있는 보든 것도 아마 이건 답변 너는 리투근이 가와게 와 있는 눈을 마도 그 컴플리트 되어 지금 지가요 어떻게 인도 강라 걸어왔들 가서 차바지네 지금 약고 인상 되잖아 인구지가요 대인도 강라 나랑 스탐체 걸어봤을 때도 참 먹어 하나 대화진 신경 야나 상도 버리죠 야나 오니 지금 나랑 솔직히 야 되는 링이 신경 나버다 가지고 깨트 와이나 중순 전화다 신경 나게 먹어 리파 그런 거 먹을 거라 상계선아 대고 언니게 프로미니티 버려 가뒤네 걸어와 참 대 마인바 축구 전화 가도 장고 기와린데 제우여는 가도 민세비 기와린데 근데 단단 밀리기는 상이 키리기 세그래 나랑 계속 아스트레일리아 키리기인데 야고시도 가와야 볼때 민세 장고 지우지 잠바도 지우지 뒤도와줘야 돼 보여는가 키스도 닝감 고jam다는 칼라메 지지감에 잡디판 그런 잡아다서 그런 로다 다와지 따셔 티키스 티가 다랑 아스트레일리아 키리기 부르지 두긴도 되는 이내 키는 많이 키르와 든주죠 가가가요 어떤데 데이가 리투 가와르게네 기부자요 말레스 이 코르비기 예믹스는 디레스
So we've covered the first two of the four mind changings, the reflection on the preciousness of attaining a human body endowed with freedoms and advantages, and then secondly the reflection on impermanence and death. Now we come to the third reflection, reflecting on the defects of samsara. The defects of samsara are something that we are just not at all aware of. Samsara is full of defects, but it just doesn't occur to us. We kind of fooled ourselves into thinking that samsara is full of enjoyments, full of potential happiness. However, Buddha Shakyamuni, as well as masters like Rinpoche and so on, pointed out that in samsara, no matter where you look, there is no happiness to be found. Not even a fragment of happiness, like not even happiness as small as that on the tip of a needle. That's a very small thing, isn't it, on the tip of a needle. There is not even that much happiness to be found in samsara. We can look in all of the 6 realms that comprise samsara, the realms of the hells, hungry ghosts, animals, humans, demigods, and gods. There is no place in any of those 6 realms that is free of suffering. All of the beings there are subject to suffering. Look at beings in the hells, hot and cold hells. They're subject to intense suffering and intense cold, inconceivably intense suffering. The beings who are born in the various hungry ghosts, various types of hungry ghosts, they are subject to intense suffering of hunger and thirst. As human beings, we're subject at the very least to the sufferings of birth, old age, sickness, and death. There's no escape from those sufferings. Demigods are afflicted by the suffering of conflict, they're constantly engaged in conflict, and gods experience the suffering of falling to lower states. So no matter where you look in samsara, no matter where you are reborn in samsara, there is no happiness to be found. Everywhere is suffering. Every state in samsara, every possible state in samsara is suffering. In spite of this very fact, we find ourselves very attached to samsara. We cling very strongly to samsara, even though there is no valid reason for this at all. Nevertheless, we are very deeply attached to samsara because of habituation through countless past lives. To illustrate this point, the absurdity of this attachment, I can share with you this video I saw on YouTube. I think it was originally from BBC News, but I watched it on YouTube. There was a young man who just got married. He got married in the UK, but he was from Ukraine. A young man just got married. 3 days after the wedding, he flew back to Ukraine to join the military there. And there was a reporter asking him, why are you returning to Ukraine to fight? You just got married, you're 3 days married. And he said to the reporter, well, if I don't go to Ukraine and fight, it's my country and I have to defend it. If I don't go and protect it, well, who will? And his wife was on board as well. She thought it was also the right thing to do. They weren't even in Ukraine. They were living in the UK. But he chose to return to Ukraine because he had such a strong notion of his country and grasping at his country and they need to protect it and so on. He was willing to give up his life for this notion of a country. This is a good illustration of the depths of our attachment, this incredibly gross and deluded attachment we have to samsara. Because of this attachment, then we are cycling through samsara, 3 realms of samsara, and the 6, taking rebirth as one of the 6 types of being. But no matter where we take rebirth, where we find ourselves, we are never going to be free from suffering. There is no place, no state within samsara that is totally free of suffering. Even if we take seemingly positive rebirth as a human being, we're still subject to these basic, inescapable sufferings of birth, old age, illness, and death. This reminds me of a time I was flying from Taiwan to Singapore, and my sponsor had bought me a ticket in business class. So I was sitting there in business class. I looked behind me, and there was a man, very elderly, frail man, being attended to by lots of people. I don't know if they were actually like staff of the airline or his own private staff, but they're like people in suits attending to him, and he was shaking, very frail and shaking. In front of him was a laptop. Just looking at him made me feel so incredibly sad. Obviously this man was incredibly rich. He was surrounded by servants, being very well looked after. But he was probably in his 70s or 80s. He was very decrepit. His face looked miserable. And he was, shaking, and his body was just so weak. And I thought, in spite of all the money and all of the attention being paid to him, no one can do anything to remove his suffering. He's subject, just like all of us, to the sufferings of birth, old age, sickness, and death. No one can remove the suffering of old age for him, and no one is going to be able to save him from the suffering of death. It really touched my heart to see this man suffering. So this just goes to show that there's no complete happiness to be found anywhere in the six realms, in spite of our desire for it, in spite of our belief that there might be. There simply is no full happiness or satisfaction to be found in samsara. That being the case, the best is if we can apply ourselves to Dhamma, and instead of taking rebirth in samsara, take rebirth in one of the pure realms, pure enlightened realms, such as Guru Rinpoche's glorious copper-coloured mountain, or another Buddha's pure land, or even better than that, to actually take rebirth in the ultimate pure land, that of our own naturally present awareness. If we are able to do that, then samsara is finished, suffering is brought to an end. That's the best possible outcome. If we fail to do that, then otherwise, if we fail to do that, who knows where we'll end up in our next life, and who knows how long this process will continue. What if we take rebirth as an animal in our next life? If we don't practice well, don't ensure positive rebirth, you could be reborn as an animal. That's a real possibility. It seems like people in Australia treat their dogs very well. Some of them are pampered and extremely comfortable, it seems. But they're still animals, right? They're still just dogs. In somewhere like Nepal or India, if you're reborn as a dog, you're probably chained up most of the day and probably never well fed. So think of that. In short, the point is to acknowledge that no matter where one is born in any of the six realms, as any of the six types of beings in samsara, all of those states are pervaded by suffering. There is no happiness to be found in samsara. So this is how we should reflect on the defects of samsara.
다음에 축구이나래, 장구이나래, 직딩 가면 등한마도 요 말에 대인들 강라 직딩 가면 커비기 예믹스게 답들 강라 다 지금 가서 축구가 상의 기부적인 상기되었다. 언제고 상의 기부적인 앙첨부는 빼면 톱 첨부를 기부적이라서 원이 마트로 파트 기부 통고 마트를 랑을 기부도 교견이 기부요. 야 앙제명해서 앙제 여기한테 파워를 여기한테 스페셜 기부요. 감독 제우디 그 감독랑 감독야 보면 감독 제우디 빼매게 기부요. 삼되어데 라는 톱소까지 가게 기부면 미디티나 히레들 빼나 빌딩 치고 쉬우들 대도 타워 치고 쉬우들도 비지장 백한 거 주고들 뒷나 때나다 빼 기부용 잘해. 삼에 뒷나 되게 딜 두즈죠. 아마 마기바 만팅바 가서 여기를 삼기 미켜죠. 딘도 가나 나랑 속에 밀때나 때 긴두셔버 때나 끼기 되는 직된데 뇽나랑 갑게 둥알레스 때는 벌 기부시고 결다 르부지 기발 에미 기부시 된데도 아서 니사 계속 당들 야고 머스디 벤치 여기 트라이 잡으려 미냠상 템들 다 디아스텔레 미터 기부시고 나나도 카드라 빈땅인데 하고만 타웬 돌봐 타웬은 미치고 시우들 타웬 그 드롭 나는 그래서 그들아 링이가 투소 뱀 미게 미즈পু레서 그들아야 투소 깨다신 거 시우를 투소 땅부터 빼야고도 빼야고 깨다시 거 다마다 디미도 만에 듣고지래도 와서 니마가 좀 눈이 계지 잡된 테마니 숨도도 간테니 나도 이렇게 땅에 부부도 가니 니 게임이 니 카타로도 나파긴 볼 엘렉션 나와 지지라네 디 나한테 국민당 나와 톱톱이도 민진당 나가 홍도 테니 동얼레 아카 디다 나래 두거래도 아테가 삼도 뭐는 나비 야가도 싸우러 시험들도 나한테 동얼 잡는데 그것들 동얼 딘도 상대 나라서 진나시제 다다 빼 제우 지가서 대대까지 가지 얼마나 그리 지랑 게 셈바도 계속 시사적으로 닝간서로 지게서는 테니 동얼 탐지 너줄로 육카줄로 기미줄로 탐지 해요 딘도가 사실 술라 되는 제 기부자 민도 얘네 기기 대비 직된데스 나라서 긴딘점을送래 뇽나랑 그 동얼레 도나 미래를 동얼 그 그거래요 해서 오야 됐어. 대 미치베지 야 다딜라 다 디질 딜라진 가마르 야 대딘도 가라 다 축구라 다 장군이라 누가 가요 니가 누구야 축구나 누구야 장군이나 누구야 축구 소리 강상벌다 니들이 그도 적로 그래 에서시나 다 딜라니 야르키지 딱 야 축축 마치는 뒷마 냠도 그래서 디가 다 축구네 적로 그래서 게 똑바 디게 민zem에비게 되네 저러왔다 딜 샘된다 인텐션이 이제 저서 인지게 인텐션을 지지게 되어도 되니 장군이 가서 아이 나 저것도 그래 나 사이비라고만 나 공주라고만 나 아직 맞이는 지금 와서 다 빼면 저것도 그래서 다 딜을 주게 그래 너나 장군라야 동아티어 축구라야 동아티어 니 개자 고교를 다 결혼도 현다다 니 쇼시만 하고 니 들러도 간다 정불링을 추쇼디 빌게트니 지그레스도 빌게트 니 맞고 추추장한 주로 내가 지금 티 강조를 다 내가 저기 잡니다 정불링 추쇼 거래 거의 야롱 살롱에 내가 지고서도 티니 주고 셔다서 티 주고 인지 말다 정불링 드롭 나서 내 기분에 거기 님이 좀 나자지가 열었어. 근데 니가 지금 추추 다 띵아 미 인포메이션 나랑 그때 지금 고교를 마도 양 띠래 나야 그룹 지기로 되는 등 가게매. 인제 지나서 하고 이제는 저 서치다 가래도 걸 최저 가지고 길려도 니 조우도 민도 간다도 게 따지지 하고 인제 가나 기부 수지를요. 미축구 시우 되는데 툭 쏘는데 그런 기부 수지데 보고 살아 되는데 그런 야구 시우인데 게임에도 그냥 지금도 딱 빼면 카트라도 프로퍼티 타기 쉬어도 스테이지 되게 들어도 너는 축구를 기부지 않는다. 대신에 장군이 사규라고 뭔가 잡아도로래 니 강박의 인슈런스 디 인슈런스 도구면도 띵이 되네 찍찍찍다. 지금 당상 현재들 베니피트는 뭐 뭐지 저거도 가리를 인슈런스도 강박의 인슈런스 지지 인데 라이프 인슈런스 디 인슈런스 강패살 루기면도 돼. 그 결혼들 아메리카 몸도 가서 봐봐서 아웃을 하시고 패션 뭐 파지 때 소리도 좀 렉트만 하게 민도 사는 거 아메리카서 어떻게 렉트에서 되게 뉴스 어떻게 tanto 같기도 쇼콜라야 누나도 땅골라야 딘도 나라 긴데 챔버스는 돈은 지딩 가서 누굴 크루레 크루 로드라 다 체중 탐질 다 원얘기 최 넘버 딱 제딩 가서 있는 기부르겠다 원디야 최 넘버 딱 버서다 나 챔부이 나 게시 나 라마이 나 투비 인선한 둘 맞기 와 묘로지기더라요 오야 라마 둘고 나라 남자 담에 기부여서기죠 최 넘버 딱 버지긴지 문이기 왜나 최 넘버 딱 버지긴지다 문이기 지금 챔이 딱 야구하고 뒷 밑으로 눈을 매봐 다시 때문에 기부여지 야구 여기리 이거 뭐래 상기 좀 된데 그 손도 야 야비 덴바토나 다티 룬딘지요 다티 안직 테마송 딘나 강송으로서나 이거 스티치야 띵아 디 딱으로 로도 그냥 드린 로도자 딘나나 강송 레스나 다 돈다도 갈로 덴바 시 돈데 또 되게나 갈비게 세레스 딜라 뒤 남노야 누가 요 말에 대화 맞아 요 말에 스타 딜라 산지게 덴바 시데 또 되게 콩추되게 어야 네 콩도 추되게 미지 임바이나 dungal sawa ini yang gumara lah, kau injiknya rally dah hak kosong rawat dungal dema kuning dema kuat dema dema si rasin hak kona, ya ini, ada tadi ni musuh je tadi tiang pemigi zobat cimu rangsir gitu mungkin secret tadi terus, sangkit dema tu na gelbise 똑바 콩도 주는 남양대 그래서 따티 인사를 배치 이들 삼부다나 똑바 콩도 주서 봐도 demasi게 똑바 콩수는데 기쁨만 두고요 말 당나라 근데 체이샤도 망부다 메데 나랑도 롱바 셔가 가시요 빼 사규 맨나 둘로 흐르르 그냥 사규 짜오지만 사규 맨나 진짜 빼 기부에 되게 들으시 저한테 나기부에 있어 저한테 들어요 근데 단다 삼탕도 빼 쳐야 보이세요 빼 미쳐야 보이세요 코세만 기부죠 윤세티 문이 이제 내로게 된 똑바당 축시여 봐. 요즘 축시여 비기. 그 속다 되는 거. 기부여 따대. 우리 저만 남으로 따바지는 기부 되네요. 똑같은 거지는 기부 되네요. 동구 캔슬을 보지 나시. 나도 동구 캔슬을 보지 근데 나가면 잘 되고 콩건들 남도도 가로 그러지. 또 남카는 돼 되게 나시. 남 미나에 지금 이게 같이 회는 지금 자손에 투디 지금 양도. 이거 되게 지금 통도. 이거는 다 전소되는 대화 탐지긴 거네. 상기 덴바토나 gelbise ore 상기 덴바토나 gelbise 똑똑콩도 주는 남양대 소다 문에게 동고 캔슬을 붙이죠 든중을 붙이죠 직들의 시도지도 견나만 자는 거 그래서 문에게 되는 그 투드 남가나 신념되게 대화해 봐 뒷마도게 나랑 지 먹고 축구 기아탄바 일라 캐랑소 나라 아메리카 프레지던트 아셔도 민 가서 당도 조 바이든이 직스도 시진핑이 기부와 말에 조 바이든이 기부와 말 캐랑소디 아스트레일리아 Prime Minister Kansari. Kona kiboy. Kansari jalka bu semje. Jalka bu semje, jalka bu khudang kibuch khaaya.
So whether you're rich or poor, it doesn't make a difference. You're still going to suffer. Suffer in different ways, yeah, but you're still going to suffer. We might think when we see someone who's more wealthy than us, or who's better looking, or more powerful, has some higher status or something, we might think, okay, I suffer, but if I can become like that, then I won't suffer anymore. We kind of imagine that, that having those things or those qualities is going to remove our suffering. But that's just not true. That's just a mistaken idea. Once you might long for something, but once you get it, the truth is that your hopes are not fulfilled. It doesn't bring you the happiness and satisfaction that you longed for. It's a bit like you might be driving through the city and you look up at one of those big towers, a penthouse at the top, and you might think, wow, imagine what it would be like to live there. It would just be so blissful. But if we actually went and met someone who's living in one of those penthouses, probably they're suffering more than us, right? Probably they're even more miserable. Gendron Chöpo said, just to paraphrase, he said, this world looks so happy and cheerful, but when you actually experience it, it's just suffering. So I might look at you and think, God, they have this and that. How nice that would be, to have what they have. You might look at me and think, oh, Rinpoche looks so happy, this and that. But even if we, get whatever it is that we're longing for, it doesn't actually bring us that happiness. It just does not bring us that happiness, because that is just how things are in samsara. There is no genuine happiness to be found. I've met so many famous people, sort of powerful people, wealthy people. Sometimes I'll meet someone like this, and on the first meeting they'll seem so together, so kind of together and kind of impressive, and I'll think, wow, yeah, they seem pretty happy and okay. But then I might meet them for a second time and a third time, and then they start to share with me all their problems. They start to open up, and then I see, they really, they're not happy. As the appearance was deceiving. They'll start telling me how they have a family problem, or a business problem, or a money problem, or a problem with their kids, or what have you. And then it all just comes pouring out, and then I think, wow, this person is really wealthy or famous or whatever, but my goodness, I'm so much more fortunate. They're much worse off than me. The point is that everyone has suffering, right? Different types of suffering, yes, but suffering, everyone has it. Poor people suffer and rich people suffer. Rich people have a lot of money, but they still suffer because they worry about losing their money, about losing their wealth, and they suffer from all the tension involved in trying to increase their money and maintain their wealth. Poor people suffer because they don't have enough. They worry that, I'm not going to have enough to eat, I'm not going to have enough to pay my bills. So they, suffer like that. The kind of contents of their suffering differ in a sense, but that both are equally suffering, right? Whether poor or rich, both suffer. There's no avoiding it. Especially these days, like in modern societies like this, you have to there's so many things you have to pay for, right? Like insurance on this, insurance on that, utilities and endless expenses. Sometimes I meet people and they say, almost all my salary is spent just on covering utilities and bills. So I've also heard about Bill Gates. This might not be correct, but I've just been told that Bill Gates is the richest man in the world. Maybe he's one of the richest men in the world. I heard that he works apparently 16 or 18 hours a day, and that he suffers from insomnia, so he barely sleeps. This might not be true. I'm not saying it's true. It's just what I've been told. So, it sounds kind of crazy, right? Why would you work 16 or 18 hours a day and deprive yourself of sleep and rest? And that cannot be happiness. He might be one of the richest men in the world, but what kind of life is that? So everyone has their problems, whether it be family problems, emotional problems, financial problems, what have you. None of us are fully fulfilled. In contrast, though, to these, these types of suffering, genuine practitioners, if you meet a genuine Dharma practitioner, they, in contrast, are quite happy actually and quite free of suffering. When I say genuine Dharma practitioner, I don't mean someone who's just a practitioner in name, like someone who's a Kempo or has a title, a Tugu or Lama. Rather, just anyone who's taken the Dharma to heart and is practicing properly, they will have a degree of happiness and contentment and less suffering. Indeed, that is how it should be, that is how it is if one practices properly. There's a quotation from a great perfection tantra called Self-Arising that reads, when you see the truth of the Buddha's teaching, or the truth of enlightenment, you could say, then you become a child of the Buddhas. When realization dawns within, then you have happiness. So this means, when you realize the meaning, the truth of Buddha's teaching, when you come to understand reality, simply speaking, then you become a child, a son or daughter of the Buddha, and you're free of suffering. Where I'm from, in Homla in Nepal, there are some people who are really poor, like their clothes are really worn and ragged. They're just barely getting by, very poor living conditions, but they're so happy, always a smile on their face, never a complaint. They must be good practitioners, right? They must really embody contentment and reduction of desire. As a practitioner, that's what we need, right? To cultivate contentment and reduce our desires. Of course, if one has gained higher realization, then for sure one will be free of suffering. To illustrate that, we can think of great masters like the late Khyentse Rinpoche and the late Dudjom Rinpoche, Jigdal Yeshe Doje. When I would go to meet Khyentse Rinpoche, I would get the sense that his mind was just as open and unobstructed as space. It was like he was just unhindered by feeling, by emotion, just totally vast, open, like space, and unwavering. Totally unwavering. So, this is where we need to get to by taking to heart the defects of samsara, the reality of samsara. Otherwise, if we continue searching for happiness in samsara, we will never ever get it.
어때 뒤에 가봤다 감좀 거리기 dungal 때 간드레스나 요링도나 거리 자샤라 미겨 자와 직장 요미데 교회 심지 담빌 하주 믹스기 있잖아 렌지 어랑이 양 개왕 있는 저 디슨 빼 거기 저도 요링도나 거리 자샤 거리 자와 됐다 추기 자와 이제 캐블니 추기 자와디 사르르가 로 되오죠 땅이 추도 있다 야 중성 사바셈바 되게 파이널 딜라 로 되오지 땅 직딩이 자와 같이 좀나 파이널 딜라 교백이 있는데 강아지르스나 딩아랑서 요링도나 거리 자샤라서 요링 드로서이나 강바 먹고 장 앞에 축구고 그러나 축구 종종종 때 축구제 다 인고입니다. 축구게 등아 두번 나 축구 중앙에 기본 그래서 축구 유상사사 유타상이 라사라 이 기분에 어야 때 가리 야고제나 가리 다롱센 셈제여레 어야 되네 거라거라 디제 종센 차 강세스나 공차로세 dungal gari sarva chinyo yang dawa ni sum yang garo sarva yang di garo di jewol ko yang jewol do pesha loss sha ko yang ti sempre yore khamba ya ujene ne khamba cha do dungal yore di ni ti tan don je chuku cha so na ya jani bu minota lorki mo she gi do de kan ni bu ja chuku cha na ya ki bu yo tanga pe thong bu cha ko do pe thong bu cha ke da chu hu cha last jong gong ro do thong bu chu so ta jail do tini kara kama shudo thada te ningbuja chuma so ju kazu mingang last president and minister to prime minister to no do so ya ngalo japan la kansen de thailand la and do so ta jin de colonel gatha bis ke so pe minister de ne da jam se so tini kanse ta ngalo de iraq de ba Saddam Hussein se ke tinta powerful gal de de jam ke si ta ji chu chu lo ke na ji bu min do ati 유름 저는 커비 자샤라 미규체에 커비게 자샤 강에는 인구 요마 규망 모습 규사나 인구미 다 진짜 내가 거리다 거리 지어 있는다 톱치부터 했나야 마토 강라 엑사이팅이요 톱 선택 강라 톱 다시 가게 인구 메딩에도 오야 사정이나 교가 게임에 당고 뺨이 가는다 쉬우는데 유능부터도 교가디 게임에 통한 자스는데 게임이 교가 통한 자스는데도 대샤로도 가시들로 개고선 갖다줘 요다 지금 중도 강차 뭐니 아주 벽에서 사정석인데 뺨이 남기 뭐 잘 자록서시 불안 부럽긴 하기로 누나 도로시 쉬우가 세가 저래 잠시만요 칸 맞을라요 찍찍 도디 그런지 셴바도 되게 칸 맞을라요 디보스랑 마찬가지야 지파는 나냐 지파는 지칸냐 지게도 되게 잘해도 이 그런 인부가 말해라 이네 다 부족세인데 빼자고 쉬우세요 부족 당고 빼장고 지가지 쉬우가지 샤체세 자도 아바칼미 아마카미 드랍스톤 드랍문다지 대두고 통데 강 파마서 담지 SM 제발로 주더래죠 이네 티직니 말에 점불링 코롬이 코르비게 자샤야 요링 도나 코르비 자샤라 뮤주 자와 찌겨요 말 코르비 자와 껴비기 찌겨요 말 요즘 돈은 거기 자셔가 믿게 줘야지. 교비 셈수 담필 하주니 셈기 길라 렌지 오르게라. 다 교 탐지게 셈수 지긴데 랑랑 셈수 지긴데 찌거려 뒤지를 쳐야 돼. 쳐야 지긴데 로데오. 나서 남이나야 돼. 다양 가시 쳐야 로데오 미도 나갈 사오도 차도 사오도 세당 사오도 denju 고부도 쳐야 매다. 가이노 디크 파이널 거 되지. 라마 침불로 연나 되지. pombola yana gishela yana tulkula yana suine ko chue yakwe bebeta o shedan ngar wo chakpa mo bo keta ta menda she go ju teni jingmuni ke dongo mar si ji chen chuba jaga ji chasar manche dana chewa yakwe bebeta pe tingi la jom marada sangi jom den ka na suni kin danda de lung chans o te te tindu kala tongoni ke chewa yakwe ji na keta chewa mena da suine lo de che mare sempati yang chu yo de gi jena ti chue ta ta track na ro ta ta Then I keep us again the church getting in like your Indian or something. Then during Donna Kurvich as well, Rikichachi, Yomante, you listen to Tabil Hajuni, some weekend like Lenju working, some mistook the Sweden and limited shirt tangular, mounted shirt tangle chido. Gango Cha, Chichigami, Ragami of the Adi church with the church, Zota, the church in Longchamar. Church and the young blood, Tunduka church and to not the church. Ti du ga gimdin chhe chhe di ngol tem gore es la jer the shi rin du kan ten shi phan do ma la ta nya na sa na ten shi phan do ma ge sa la ten phan do ma ma so ge sang ra bu ji sagi chhe du na lo chung ti du gore a jig dem du na lo chung ti du gore a ge na ung ma ra a sung ja su che ti mo ne nga zo da ma re lo chung du kan chhe du tu na e chhe kam ze ya pre ai na lo ge da la chhe du ma ni thang gor ji tang na ya da ya ro du ja da che ma ro ina success in the tum ti top to ma 인도 가라 나랑 탐지기 취지잖아 나랑 솔로 되고 용데스 인도 가라 인도네시아 베트라 송데스 아주 좀 그냥 도살자
So there are some lines lines of teaching by Gendon Tripel which illustrate the defects of samsara. I won't attempt to translate them directly, but just very loosely as we go along. No matter where we look in the three realms of samsara, there is suffering. And no matter where we look in the three realms, the nature of the experience there is suffering. We can compare the actions of samsara, like samsaric actions, to dharmic actions. Gendon Tripel says when you samsaric, you might engage in like some samsaric or worldly action activity for a long time, wanting to complete some project or the like. But when it's finally completed, it doesn't bring you fulfillment or satisfaction. It just brings you regret, essentially. On the other hand, if you apply yourself to a dharma action or dharma project, for lack of a better word, when it's finally complete, the result is ease and fulfillment, a sense of ease and fulfillment. This is the difference between pursuing samsara and samsaric pursuits and pursuing the dharma. So you might pursue some samsaric aim over a long period of time, like maybe it's the pursuit of wealth, and you might work really hard, do something, really difficult work, and for a really long time, in order to gain a certain amount of wealth. But then you get it, and it doesn't bring you that happiness you'd longed for, that you thought it would bring you. This is just how it is. This is like universal experience, right? It might be a car, you know, you want to save up to get a big fancy car, but then you get it and it just doesn't bring you that same fulfillment, or maybe you're happy with it for a bit, but then you become really anxious about it getting scratched or what have you, and then it does get scratched and then you have to worry about the repairs, or then you need to upgrade it or sell it, get a new car. The same goes with houses and all other worldly possessions, right? Or it might be status that you're after. You work, devote yourself for years to attaining some high status, like power or political position, for example. But look where most people who end up with high status, look where they end up. So many powerful leaders end up in prison. Recent leaders of Taiwan who are now in prison, some who've even been executed. We can look at Saddam Hussein in Iraq, who was killed, and so on. In any case, they do not experience happiness and fulfillment. The point of all of this is to say that lengthy samsaric projects are essenceless. They do not bring happiness. They're futile. The same goes for personal relationships and things. We might get excited about being with someone, and at first it might be exciting and kind of tantalizing, but quite soon actually, it loses its shine, loses its luster. We see this with couples, right? Romantic couples a lot. First of all, people might be really in love and just delight in each other's company, but it wears off pretty soon, right? And often then that love, that attraction is replaced by revulsion or dislike. Even if people end up not separating, they might just go off each other and they don't enjoy each other's company anymore. They don't want to be around each other. The same goes for often with children. People will have kids and just be so obsessed with their kids and in love with their children. But then as the children grow up, they don't listen to their parents, or they have different ideas, different wishes, and they end up in conflict with their kids. And then even the thought of then a parent, even just thinking about their child or seeing their child, just causes them anguish or anger or what have you. Again, this is like a universal situation around the world. It's not something that just happens like in isolated cases. In short, reflecting upon the defects of samsara like this, we can see that the source of happiness, the source of genuine happiness, is the Buddha Dharma. Practicing the Buddha Dharma. You might then say, well, if that's the case, why do we see Dharma practitioners who are angry and upset and this and that? Well, if someone they might regard themselves as a practitioner, but if they're stirred up by emotions all the time and they're angry or unhappy or argumentative, then they're not practicing Dharma properly and they can't really be called a practitioner. So that doesn't count. This is not my idea, my statement. I'm actually just repeating the words of the Buddha. Buddha Shakyamuni stated this very clearly. A sign of a genuine practitioner is that they are at ease, they are content, and increasingly so as they continue to practice. Genren Shobal also says, most people remember Dharma just towards the end of their life, or even just when they're approaching death, but by then it's too late. We see this a lot, right? People just really sucked in by samsara for most of their lives, but as they get old and the thought of death starts to occur to them, then they think about practicing the Dharma. But to be honest, by then it's too late. It's too late to do any significant practice, bring about any significant change. Sure, someone old can recite mani mantras and so on, but to really make substantial progress, it's just too late. So if you want to practice properly and get somewhere, you need to apply yourself right now, from when you're young. That's what I'm saying. And one of my teachers, Rigpa Melbourne, told me this when I was young. He would say, if you want to practice Dharma, you've got to start when you're young. You've got to set out when you're young. Don't wait till you're old, it'll be too late then. It's really true, and that was precious advice. Actually, he said, if you want to practice Dharma, you need to start when you're young. If you want to do something worldly, you need to do it when you're young. He said, whether it be Dharma or worldly stuff, you need to do both when you're young. If you wait till you're old, it's too late.
근데 땅아 깨져 먹고지 깨져 뉴뉴지나 강나서나 땅가랑서 최진에 뿌라 그때 야고지 농특교대 도스칼리가 버티야 배윤 먹게져 땅이 캔나발에 초시지 있으라기 초시지는 초시 자동차 두고 말해 초시지 두나 땅가랑서 초시 촉도 길어서 나도 저것이부터 와서 또 그래 디마도 버도 초시 연계 말해 어디인데 강다 초시지 또 생각은 지기나 빼나 되는 가랑서 또 초시지게나 랑게 파마 경고라양 뒤지되기라 그래 rangi putu layang tuzu tegira gare rangi keme layang tuzu tegira gare chuma ji mila phando yang chitu gare rangi chue yang dutu gare chokje tsar lega kare tirra chingmi yul tila tene shiuj gaji che daga chena parga chigne mune ge phamala yabochi ma to jopa ke pugula tekker yabochi ma pugu thola shurge tiyan tene mandi bacha gendo dinashin chigi tene rangi ina ya chik chue dubbi thamje dubba to te chagre tinjo kala tandani to shoji chene आता बिगज त जम्बुलिङ चाहिँ एन्ड हो मारो थाम चाहिँ था जोबि मे बरु गुजिरे दोरे न गरि न त लगाइ न दिगज सुन दिगदु आ गुइ न दिगज सुन दिगदु आ ngala पोजिसन न दिगज सुन दिगदु आ सरंग छोसी चाहिँ तिमिति किबु यो मारे छोसी नर्थ न देना किबु थादुइ गाला शेम्बा मेना छोसी नर्थ न देना चुबु थादुइ गाला शेम्बा मेना किबु थादुइ सारा सुन निला जो मारे छोसी 여기 미디 추구래라 마시 추구를 해는 잠이도 왔던 그 추구 전부터 탐제 다른 추구 추구 대인도 요 말인데 캐나나 같은 또 초시 먹고지 먹어 뉴뉴지 전에 님마지가 추주주 요가 되고 이제 캐나 내가 저게 있나 티나나 추주직 나 추주 니서비에 나 추주 눈게지 냐고 있게 추주 니성지 사고 있게 추주 나 개구지 내가 지고 있게 딱 가져 지고 있나 티나나야 티네 니마래랑 아빠만 빼 짜신 거래 뭐니 남바상기게 최대 장주선도 투되 장주선이 파만일 때네 장주선 깨고요 근데 파마스는 빼자신 거래 되돌아야 뭐니 이게 뒤져대기다 때네 랑게 부주소에나 나랑도 빼 야고선 주구서 야고쇼 소고상 지도다 내가 지고 부구서랑 나랑 체크를 야고 때마다 부구도 쳐라도 셔 뒤져서 맞지 나랑도 빼셔 야고사 간지게 담겨 다음에 배차도 된 부구서라야 뒤져 또 스테트 와지 때 랑게 양이 말을 다시 추서 제가 추서 찍는 로종 간세 최지도 와지 지도라야 또 랑래 교와다 랑래 다 그냥 아스텔때 축구가 되는데 양티나라 장고 먹고 여기 프로그램 먹고 여기 한 텐저다 또 편도 지도 진짜 중요해 나랑도 가르기 기와 좀 그래 랑라야 기고 샴라야 개발이 말 안이 들들 제인들들 중소 안서 선 맞아 안저 레스트 교과 시우 육대가 제가 제 지금 유당 민간데 뱀미 레스트 지구시나 먹고 타로 그러다 이게 통고 말해 갈리 도나 사잖아 도 간도 진짜 간도 이양 사이가 뱀미 교과 시우 레스트 죽소이나 민게 돈다 유던들 근데 예연 먹고지 나타 파마 라도 분자 라도 깨미 라도 허가 라도 먹고지 라도 딘도 간라 또 저가 저게 되네 초시진의 레스트 중앙지 브레이크도 있는 갭네 로기나 되네 게도도 간라 라스트 모멘트 나도 겨버미게 차그래 딘디 텐스 탐절응이 캐나바 탐절라 레와도지나 초시 또 지로 초시 먹고지 쓰면 초시 먹고지 두고 말해 초시 또 저지 유당 민당 간래네 또 저잖아 야고 두스 니들 상도 두스
So, contentment is extremely important, but that said, it's not really possible for us to just kind of leap to the highest degree of contentment straight away, and that goes with all of the various qualities we're trying to cultivate. We can't just jump to the highest point straight away. So we need contentment, and we should the supreme or consummate level of contentment is attained only when once the great perfection is realized. Until we reach that point, though, we can still strive to cultivate a relative degree of contentment. And this I would like to really suggest and request all of you to try to do. In our lives, cultivating contentment can be of enormous benefit in our lives. When you, if you cultivate contentment and kind of if you cultivate contentment, then that opens up time and availability, time to look after your family, spend time with your spouse, with your parents, with your children, and other people in your circle, gives you time to practice and so on, to really look after the various aspects of your life. And if you are able to live like this sort of every day and every week, just allocating a reasonable amount of time to all of your responsibilities, then you'll be able to live without regret and without anguish, and also avoid a lot of problems in family, relationships, and so on. And of course this will be a benefit to your Dharma practice, because you'll be able to also manage time for Dharma as well. Otherwise, if we don't rein in our desires and we don't cultivate contentment, we can end up just chasing after our desires endlessly. You earn a certain amount of money, but you're not satisfied, so you want to earn more. You accomplish one project, but you want to accomplish another, or maybe it's a position that you're after. You're just constantly striving for more and more, and so involved and caught up with those pursuits that you neglect other areas. You neglect your spouse, your family, your parents, your children, and your Dharma practice. So putting a degree of contentment and reining in one's desires, I think, can be really beneficial. Strive for wealth, but maybe just try and put cap the degree of wealth that you're aiming for. To be honest, already in Australia, everyone here is actually already very wealthy. This is a very wealthy country. Of course, I'm sure there are people in society here who are still struggling, but generally, I'm sure all of you are quite, for the most part, really quite wealthy actually already. Saraha said, contentment is the greatest wealth. So this is not something I'm making up. This is, actually Saraha himself, the great Mahasiddha, said this. If we look at the day, like 24 hours, maybe you spend 8 or 9 hours working, then maybe you need 8 hours for sleep, and then 2 or 3 hours maybe for cooking and eating and so on. I guess each of you, will have different, a different schedule to keep to, different things to do in the day. But the point is that it really is helpful to kind of cultivate contentment so that we can then use our time more wisely. That's the point. In the Mahayana teachings especially, parents were taught that our parents are of extraordinary kindness by giving us this life, by nurturing us and looking after us. They've shown us great kindness, so we're indebted to our parents. It's really important, and it's really important that we give back to our parents, so spend some time with them. Likewise with children, if you have children. If you don't spend time with your children, then they can end up going astray, not feeling loved, and end up in difficult situations. So it's important to spend time with your children as well. Of course, it's important as well to spend time daily on Dharma practice. So, to reiterate, try to cultivate a degree of contentment and use that contentment to help yourself manage your time and use your time more wisely. Then you'll be able to live your life without regret, and avoid a lot of problems at the same time. There's a saying that if you travel really fast, you miss the scenery, but if you slow down, then you get to see everything. So it's kind of like that. Once you slow down, once you cultivate contentment, you can slow down and actually look around you and pay attention to all the things in your life. So this is my request, or rather my hope, and also kind of my advice or my opinion about what would be helpful. A degree of contentment, I think that's really beneficial.
That deal council is now allowed to leave into the country, Junga, such Junga Tamsi and Juda Kenla, 사부nyugo dama pogo setni ya zo gyugen tende tene jungwa shi sa chu melung ge kenda gyudan kenya tene chi no gi jiten tabje gyugen tene chudde yore nang aram so ge tene kidu dedu riktu gi tere tamje ya tene rang nang ge tene dosa ja tan temu ga ja chado tene dona megi wa chu dan tende le tene chen chudde wa yin gyu kala tamje gyugen le sang gi chum den de ge jaba po shi da su yo se go ma le tamje gyugen le tene cha chunam tamje gyule chu de gyu de shin she ge so gyule go ba kan ba ge jong chim de ge song sa 디송두칸 디페미기 마기 년도 대반에 아디 조바심을 벌도 디디어규요 디페미기 상기 좀 된데 측사부 송은 되가라 탐지 규견을 정하라 당아도 커버 능력이 잔존데 간지신 정하라서나 규단 깨는 정하리 아는 커버 능력이 규도 언니 싸와데 강하라서나 미기워주도 당에 자가지가 되나서 막 뒤셔နေတာ뭐 어디가 미기워주데 강하라서나 류기 미기워 순 나게 미기워 시 이기 미기워 아 숨세 견도 미기워주 나게 미기와 순디 강하르스나 직접 야 직접 미라시 따투바자교 미라 두자라교 카요 나요 꿈마 자바 참바 마랍스게 라스게 되게 직접 미일 니스나 마기와게 미라 동알게 직접 나철스나 깨자 바라제 던다 예라 메라 망고지 나도 나 깨자 빼먹고시 게임도 가라 더 비어도 몇 깨자 나랑서 디즈이지 깨자 망고시 기대 나철스네 낙찰을 때 디고에서 말해와 낙찰을 때 디고에 초보 직당 낙찰을 깨져 잘 들으시기 때 누자를 바꿔도 주셔서 저도 많이 넣어서 저도 두바자서 깨져서 민망부지를 디스럽지고 민망부지를 디스럽지는 디고래도 화버도 그냥 깨져 망대 차당 깨져 나타라 미 파마타라 나야라 나타 랑이 타라 미지직데 말아무스 누자를 말았나야 지코데 가이나 코디지 말아 나리 야가 이러도 나는 아주 법바디 감마자야 아주 아스트레일리아에 약고인 근데 지지 말해도 돌나 탐 저기 깨져 탐지 되는 냐만 기분 다스를 무슨 가 송송 turku kyo shena kyo mi do yabu du kyo ka mang da do ka di nyung chi go sa re nga ran bu ji ka na de ni kyen bu ji shi ni kya du ni she ge me tang bu tang shan she ge de kyen ni da di go ayu na a ka de da ma da kya ja she ge tam ji sha dang re se kyo rang kya ja she ni de da sa ang shu da shu de sui yin sam na nga ran so ya ka bu ji sa ge na pe na nepal de so she na nepal ji ya de da shu re yes de nepal ji ya ka na da shu de ka na sa na karnali sta nga de sa jo ya ge karnali state de ya shu re se ge 네 강나스네 가와시나 um라디 다셔리겠어. um라니 야야 남과 좀서 이 강은 뭐지 벽이 산삼데 디타셔. 디나니 가자 나랑 이길 다셔. 디나니 가자 나랑 이길 다셔. 걔는 나가 뱀딩가 주정하죠. 디나는 띵하는 나랑 다셔. 다들이 깨듯이 랑디 다셔 되고 이 차만 거. 차고. 대신라야 두자를 무슨 말람나야 강에 직설니 지이면은 훨씬 더 뭐가 나한테 다시고 걔나도 남나 내셔널리티스 같이 기우가이서 이 약합되게 너는 티켓이 시에야 차번 깨져. 랑쪽을 차고. 차던 게 깨져 디바. 띵이 라비오 바르긴 보고 누르서 도샤 샤당 띵무슨 되게리니 미기오. 마차 마담 띵무 되게리니 기오. 도샤 샤당 게 깨져 시스면 디바래. 어디 이제 깨져 먹고 되시기오 말했어. nga ti sung te ni la ta ke de ni pe she do do chiga je le ma ji da ni da ni ma jang ai ni ji sa ba do ke de ma she ka sum de de pe nga je she de ka li shu tu ni da de na ko men de ma jam ni yi ti ni tu mi je pe ma chu de se ta da mo khong shu la ma khong shu nga na ju ke pe ke wa de ko ni ro ni ta wa kar ma ko na pe so nga je je sa ga do nga je ke de ma she de ni chu shu ga do su le de ni ko notice ni ko la mentor 콜 투벌 코코버지도 양진 내가 나요 조식 되니 투벌 칼라트 지지지 메게 뭔가 시험이 니마 정아 상도 니뭐 지초도 와는 이득을 표제 되는지 한 보디직 차서 근데 나도 디데 융융 지나 되거든 깨져 시죠 탐지지 마라 이게 토라 지금 밥상에는 건줄 사서 건줄 때는 세사 말이 로직 라다 건줄 때도 퉁든지래서 니마 찍라 표지 보디 퉁든지래서 근데 깨져 사는 거 아주 깨져디 디그 깨져 때 용지 셰고 디디를 낙찰을 낙찰 직접 낙찰 참아 준스 아까 나도 미겠습니다 성이 참아 준스 참아도 미니 지시 옆에 tuk시 잡을 때라 나도 있는 tuk싱 쓰고 그거 딜을 코랑이 tuk시 때라 됐어 가서 참아서 이거 직접 가지고 참아 준스는 통마 마통송 거나 마고송 시비 준스 디디 나도 미기와 시들 다 류기 미기와 순스겐데 쪽제바 샘제세교 독쇼 미세기 되게 제시해. 되니 스토어제. 마지발에서 꼬마 잡게. 미게라. 꼬마는 이어 초규지 당 꼬는 거지. 꾸규지 당 원 저기 잡아 다 중을 저런데 잡아. 되니까 마지발에 말해. 되니 류기미가. 미상체 봤어. 다 미상체 결혼도 아니도 얘는 저기도 봐셔게. Tim Mayim Bisangi Jumden, the Jesus Jubi Tavaji Lama Jim Panju, Rangi Pume Mayim, Shangi Pumela, Loyam Jananda, Rangi Choga Mayim, Shangi Choga Jan, till a Loyam said, the Harbor to Choga Yodik, and the Lord, Misan Choba said the Ganta, Galon, so that the Denka, the Chitang around the number Sangi Shumden, the Loma Yen Tamjilla, did it in Loyam, Kansas and Loyam, the Miki Vachun, Chisha. That lay the young Dummy Dog Shiggy, more than to Zoom to Shanty, Zuko the Dog Shiggy. The Indicanta, Luigi Miki was Sunche, Trocheva, Majimbal, Misan Chebas. Jim Misan Cheba, the Parete, Laboratory, Loyam Chigi, Chokakemi, you can get Loyam Chigi, the Wachabu, so on. Sunche. Atijela did Kangaranzoina, Lotta, Napsum, Nusum, Lottas, Napsum Sena, Pagi Mijil, Guji, Yakuja, Titting Altona, some Gido, Yakut, the Chicken, what to go into Penapagi of Chilot, Pammy Rosary, the Marcy Bed, Sabasaka, eating all of us, and the two go Gido, the Chakin, Mijil, Chuto, Yakushi, Rosrek, the Rolex, the Shiuji, the Omega, the good. That didn't all around some tinting other thing. Like Tilla Constance and Napsams, me to Turtle. Nursums in the name Maki Wachuna, Kachana, Nara, Gena, Nursums. Loctas in Tanzan, one Josun Meba, take up to me, live nothing. You get the lock the dushete. But teach you to make you a chute. Team make you a chute again, then also comes from Kora the Joe. That like a motion, Moshi, they come from Koratam Jegi. Toshaka Gunga, the neck of the Yidal to go, Imugu Wamke, Tundu to go, Shadam, Yalva to the cutie later. That's a special garden, the motion, Tarancho the Chikshago, that didn't register the Shashan, that lay unison desert, lay Gavachan and do the Archon, lay Migavachan and do Migu Chitapana comes from Kora, Tondo, comes from Carson Tomsona, the Tabashan and Kedo, in the car. That is something it's Charop the Jilava, the Tamji to the Jane. We give you the compound to give you the time to do. That's all around the Pama can welcome the Avachirochi starting as a Navasanki shoot in Nasa, the Tire, that bring the Ashanese. Yes.
So now we come to the fourth mind changing, karmic cause and effect. I'll go through this quickly because we're almost out of time. It is possible to talk about karmic cause and effect in a lot of detail and also very well, comprehensively, in a very evocative and also blessed, inspiring way. But we're out of time almost, so I'm going to take a shortcut and just explain very concisely. Essentially, karma means causality, cause and effect, the fact that a cause ripens into an effect. And then we have this causal continuum. We can understand this in terms of the external elements, external environment, like look at the elements of earth, water, fire, and so on, that make up the external world. All of these come about through the interaction of causes and conditions, like you plant a seed, that then grows into a sprout, and so on and so forth. Likewise with inner experience or inner phenomena, all of these arise through the interaction of causes and conditions. The arising of the different afflictions, the negative emotions of anger, attachment, and so on, ignorance. Just as in short, as Buddha said, all things, all phenomena arise from causes. These causes were taught by the Buddha. Whenever those, sorry, it's a very bad translation of this very famous verse. All things arise from causes. These causes were taught by the Buddha. When these causes are brought, these causes can be brought to a halt. To do this, the Buddha taught as follows. Something, loosely speaking, like that. These four very fundamental lines of teaching spoken by Buddha Shakyamuni can be explained according to the different levels of teachings, all the way from the Shravakayana vehicle up to the teachings of the Great Perfection. In short, though, when reflecting on karmic cause and effect, we need to identify the 10 non-virtues. and commit ourselves to abandoning the 10 non-virtues, and in turn then cultivating or practicing the 10 virtues. So I'll go quickly through the 10 non-virtues. Each of them can be explained in a lot of detail with further divisions and so on. I'm just going to list them and, pretty much just go through them as a list. So we have 10 non-virtues in total. These 10 are comprised of 3 non-virtues of body, 4 of speech, and 3 of mind. So from among body, speech, and mind, actually most non-virtue for us, most of our non-virtue is accumulated through speech, actually. Okay, actually, we'll stick to the ordinary order. So first of all, body. The 3 non-virtues of the body are to kill, to take life, so to kill another being, to steal, and this means stealing like robbing someone, or just stealing from someone, taking something that is not given in a sort of in a hidden way. That's not the right word, but you get what I mean. Then we have sexual misconduct. For like a monastic who has vows, this refers to celibacy, breaking a vow of celibacy. But for other lay practitioners and other people, this refers to adultery and other types of sexual misconduct. So if a spouse who are partners who are committed to each other, then if they sleep with someone else, or if, for instance, getting involved with someone who is either too young or inappropriate in some way, all of that pertains to sexual misconduct. There are a lot of different divisions and types of sexual misconduct described in the scriptures, but we're not going to get into that. But it is said that from among the different types of sexual misconduct, for 2 partners who are committed to each other, for either of them to engage in adultery is a serious non-virtue. So those are the 3 non-virtues of body. Then we have the 4 non-virtues of speech. So first of all, harsh words, which means any words that disturb the minds of others. So words spoken with aggression or malice or harsh, unpleasant, hurtful words. Then we have then we have gossip or meaningless talk. It's often translated like that. And we might think, well, okay, sure, like speaking harsh words and lying and so on are negative, but what's wrong with just talking? What's wrong with just chatting? We might think that there's nothing non-virtuous about it, but actually if we look more closely, we can see that there is a lot of non-virtue involved in just chatting, just talking without, just meaningless talk. Most especially if you talk unnecessarily in a Dharma environment, like in a place where people are practicing, focusing on practice, and you then distract people from their practice or interrupt their practice. That is a heavy non-virtue, because you're obstructing people's Dharma practice, obstructing their virtue. And in actual fact, if we think about most of the talk that we engage in, most of it really is meaningless. And we might think, it's not negative though, but actually it's always motivated by subtle attachment and subtle aversion. When I was younger and I was studying with my teacher, Khenpo Daze Rinpoche, he said to me one day, he said, "Tukui, you're okay. You don't have too many faults as such, but you really talk too much. You need to cut down on that." And I said to him, "What do you mean? I don't lie. I don't speak harshly. What's the problem? There's nothing wrong with just talking." And then he pointed out to me the faults of just talking. He said, he said there's always this talk is always fueled by attachment or aversion, attachment to the self and aversion to others. So it's like you might be talking about a place, but your attitude is that, okay, from among all countries, the best country is Nepal. And okay, where's the best county in Nepal? Oh, it's Kanali. Well, then that's where Rinpoche is from. And then you say, okay, well, where's the best area in that county? Oh, it's Humla, your place. And where's the best place in Humla? Oh, your village. Where's the best house in your village, or your house and your family, and from among your family, who's the best? If you look into it, you basically kind of, you believe that you're the best and you're the center of everything. So it's this attachment that is like bleeding through all of your conversation. And the same goes in terms of aversion. Because of that attachment, then you have aversion, to others, and that is colouring and motivating all of your conversation. So think about that, the non-virtue you're accumulating just by talking on and on. In short, Nagarjuna said, any action stained by anger, any action stained by attachment, anger, or ignorance, that is non-virtue. Any action that is free of those three poisons, that is virtue. So that's pretty clear definition, right? So that's about gossip or meaningless talk. That is a non-virtuous type of speech. We also have lying. So whether we tell like really frank lies or kind of lie in a more obsequious, circuitous way, all of that is lying. If we have the wish to deceive people, that is non-virtue. And then we have divisive speech. So this is speaking in a way that divides people. So two people who might get along, there might be no problem between them, but then you sow seeds of discourse because of your own, emotion. That's another type of, fourth type of non-virtuous speech. Finally, we have the three non-virtues of mind, which are envy, malice, and wrong view. Envy refers to envying other people's possessions or qualities. Like you might see someone who's wealthy and you just think, I wish I had that wealth for myself, They might have a really great car, like a Rolls Royce, to use an example, and you might just kind of be overcome by this desire to have that car for yourself. Or they might have a fancy watch like a Rolex, You see something someone else has and that triggers this envy in you. You want it for yourself. Then we have malice. Malice is wishing ill upon other people, so ill will, wishing that someone is sick, that they have an accident, that things don't go well for them. And then we have wrong view, which means not having faith in the three jewels, not believing in karmic cause and effect, not believing in past and future lives. That is the kind of the worst, heaviest type of wrong view. To sum up, these are the 10 non-virtues, and through these 10 non-virtues, then we end up taking rebirth in samsara. Through non-virtue motivated by anger, we take rebirth in hell realms primarily. Non-virtue motivated by desire, then rebirth as humans, and ignorance as animals, and so on. The 6 realms and non-virtues can also be explained like this. But yeah, we will sum up now, and we won't go through all of these details. To backtrack, from my side to backtrack. So Rinpoche's teacher, Khenpo Daze, said, you need to stop talking so much. And then after that I committed to a month of silence during Sagadawa. But during that, so I was made a vow of silence for a month. But then during that time, one of my monks fell sick. And then it was really difficult because I needed to communicate, give instructions to people, give him medicine, make him tukpa, do this, do that. And I had to write all of it down. The person who was taking care didn't have much initiative, so I was always writing instructions. After like 2 weeks of, looking after this, giving instructions by writing notes, and they were just like the, really basic instructions, like, there was a pile of notes under my table, like this high, and I thought, my God, I'm keeping a vow of silence and only writing down what is absolutely necessary to, look after this sick monk. Imagine if we transcribed everything we said, all of our meaningless talk. We'd end up, with hundreds of volumes of transcripts of all of our talk. Maybe 60 or 100 times more than the Kangyur, the collected words of the Buddha. So in short, the point is we need to reflect on karma, cause and effect, and abandon the 10 non-virtues as much as we can. In addition, we need to accomplish the 10 virtues as much as we can. We need to take care of our parents. This is really important for all followers of the Buddha, taking care of our parents. and we need to apply ourselves to Dharma and practice the Dharma as best as we possibly can. So in short, that's it. Please take those points to heart, and I'm going to stop here.
Ke gano ji la long tu ba ye su pe so la